everybody. Week 3. You're halfway home. Welcome to week 3 of 30 Days Feeling Fabulous. Stress week. I don't know if all of you read my email today, but this truly is, as I call it, my favorite child, I think, of the 4 weeks, because I just recognize its role in my life and the importance stress management plays to most of us in our daily lives. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into things, and we're going to talk a little bit in this video about the stress and inflammation connection, because they are closely connected, and I feel it's important for all of us to understand that. So let me share my screen with you all. And here we go. Anyway, as I said, week 3, halfway home. Hope everyone seems to be rocking it, so no issues there. But let me put on my slideshow. There we go. Okay, so the stats real quick. 18% of US adults face anxiety on a daily basis. May not have anxiety attacks on a daily basis, but it's something that's kind of in the corner of their minds that they're dealing with. And then 7% of adults in the US face depression on an annual basis. So those numbers are very considerable, and I actually think they're a lot higher, because I think a lot of people don't get treatment in a lot of these scenarios, so I actually feel those numbers are fairly low. And the issue is that anxiety is on a significant increase. It's kind of, skyrocketing. There's a lot that might go into that. A lot of, people saying social media plays a large role in that. But anyway, lately I have been hearing the term age of anxiety, and I do see it in my daily practice with my clients that a lot of them do suffer from anxiety and generalized anxiety. The one blood test called a CRP that I mentioned in the first kind of video in terms of blood work. Now that is a measure of all over inflammation, systemic inflammation as it's called in the body. And when you have an elevated CRP, you are actually 3 to 5 times more likely to be diagnosed with anxiety and depression. So a direct testable link between anxiety and depression. And when your brain is in a constant low grade form of, inflammation, that is, a lot of us even just think, oh, we have brain fog. Well, just think of that. That's like your neurotransmitters, which are your brain signals, how they talk to each other. That's them trying to talk to each other through a bowl full of Jell-O. They're just not flowing freely. And it's kind of leading to that, not only depressive disorders, anxiety disorders, but just brain fog in general. And you not acting at your highest top performance in your job, in your daily life. So another thing to consider is that 90% of our serotonin is produced in our gut. So serotonin is a neurotransmitter, again, one of those transmitters that communicates within our brain typically. People think of it as a brain chemical, but it's actually produced in the gut. And there's a strong correlation between serotonin, it not being produced in correct quantities or absorbed in correct quantities, and issues with gut, like IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, irritable bowel disease, and also autoimmunity. So it's important to understand that how your gut's functioning will dictate how you feel. And also another neurotransmitter that a lot of you have probably heard of is something called dopamine, and I do talk to this a bit this week. But dopamine is a neurotransmitter, again, a signaling chemical within our body. And we think of it as like kind of, it makes us feel good. So dopamine hits, we get those when something good happens. And it gives us just kind of a rush of good feelings. But there's kind of an epidemic these days, because things like social media likes and comments and our constant involvement in technology is constantly giving us these quick dopamine hits. And we've kind of become numb to them. So that's not a great thing. We've kind of become desensitized in general. So I actually recommended for one of my challenges last week to kind of desensitize yourself to this constant dopamine by maybe taking a break from social media, because we want to be able to experience pleasure and not constantly be desensitized to it. So I love the quote, if you don't pick a day to relax, your body will pick it for you. I think truly in my case that was correct. When I started experiencing my autoimmune symptoms 18 years ago, that was definitely the case, was my body telling me to slow down, take it easy, and relook at things and reevaluate my priorities, to be honest. So anxiety, inflammation, and food, how is this all interconnected? Well, there's a huge, food-mood connection. Inflammatory foods cause inflammation in the body. I mean, what do you think those potato chips, those candy bars are doing to your cells? Not good things. So, you know, food is mood, truly. And I see that time and again in my practice when people report, you know, anxiety and things like that. And after they're eating much better, they actually feel much better. The bad bacteria in our gut, which is, you know, we're more bacteria than we are human cells. That bad bacteria in the gut that we want to kind of be in low numbers actually feeds on sugar. So people that are eating a high carbohydrate, simple carb diet are feeding those good bacteria on a daily basis, and we are not feeding the good bacteria, unfortunately. So the bad bacteria continue to proliferate, causing a lot of different problems. So removing top inflammatory foods such as gluten, dairy, sugar, processed foods, processed oils can definitely help with anxiety and depression. I'm not saying it's a cure-all, but it's always a great place to start. It's a low-hanging fruit without medication. So I always, you know, try to get people who are on anxiety meds just to understand that connection and also try the food path along the same parallel path. And as I said, the top contributor is the naked carbs, the cookies, cakes, crackers, any of that processed food is what's feeding that bad bacteria and probably impacting our serotonin levels and not doing us any good going forward. And why is that? I mean, why does that actually happen? Well, part of it is that gluten and dairy actually work on the opioid receptors in the brain. They cross what's called the blood-brain barrier, and they almost become like an addictive substance. So I even read a study on how addictive dairy can be for individuals. And we need to break that cycle because of the inflammation it's causing. So also anxiety, and I don't know which, it's like a chicken egg, what came first, but anxiety can lower peristalsis in the gut, just meaning that it slows down our digestion capabilities, meaning constipation, different things like that can have a direct correlation with anxiety. And unstable blood sugar equals unstable mood. So you've all heard the term hangry. So that's an easy one to think of. How do you feel when your blood sugar is unstable, when you've been living on that insulin roller coaster, as I've discussed in the past? How do you feel? How does it make you feel every couple hours when you're hangry? You're usually not, quick to react, not able to deal with certain situations probably is in the best manner. So just understanding that connection. And then last but not least, the impact of alcohol on anxiety. A lot of people use alcohol as kind of a way to calm down. And I, can't disagree. I do love a good glass of wine, especially on a snowy, cold day. However, relying on alcohol actually is kind of what you want to avoid if you're experiencing anxiety and depression, because unfortunately it does alter those neurotransmitters and alters the level of serotonin and can often make you feel a lot worse. A lot of my female clients especially report after having a few glasses of wine the next day being much more anxious. And that's because of the impact it has on those neurotransmitters. So it's worth just being aware of. Some other factors in stress, anxiety management, and overall how that leads to inflammation is understanding that hormonal connection. So the hormone cortisol I've mentioned before is your stress hormone, secreted by your adrenal glands. And we live in this chronic state of stress. It might not be high stress, but it's in a lot of our lives kind of omnipresent. And it's called a catabolic hormone. So what that means is that it's breaking us down. There's a catabolic state and an anabolic state. So the catabolic state is what is breaking us down. And that continual breaking of things down leads to chronic inflammation and just, us also increasing our blood sugar, which is another thing contributing to anxiety. So what can we do? Beyond the food and correcting the food, there's a lot we can do to work with anxiety and depression. Living with the sun, our circadian rhythms are instrumental in us feeling better. And so, waking up early in the morning and going to bed early at night and kind of paying attention to our body cues. I know not everyone is a morning person, but at least trying to respect the fact that we do need to get a very good night's sleep to feel our best. We want to actively manage that cortisol however we can and recognize when it's becoming a factor in our anxiety and depression. There are a lot of supplements you can take. I can't recommend anything. I've tried almost all of them. There's things like adaptogens, which are herbal remedies that work to regulate mood. There's just straight up vitamins and that will help you control food and mood. But that's kind of an individual things, and worth talking to a practitioner about, and making sure that what you're taking is working for you, because sometimes it can actually have the direct opposite effect. So it's something you need to be very careful with. You can test. A lot of times blood work will just test a point in day, like a morning cortisol level, and I don't recommend that because it doesn't give you the full picture of what your cortisol is doing over the day. Most people, we want our cortisol to be super high in the morning and then come down at night so we can go to bed. So it's high in the morning to wake you up, get you ready for your day, get you all pumped up. And then at night we want it coming down. So it should kind of look like a roller coaster going down. And in many people, I either see it the opposite way or kind of steady state throughout the day, which is not what we want. So it's great to have an all-day cortisol test. It's usually done through your saliva. But that one-off morning cortisol, I don't really buy into all that much. So that's just an FYI. So this is just a quick picture in terms of our autonomic nervous system. Our sympathetic is our fight or flight, parasympathetic is rest and digest. But just understanding in a visual form what stress can do to our body. I mean, in the different body systems it impacts. And this is not even all of it, but this is just kind of a quick picture. Increased coagulation. That actually, people with high stress, they have more heart attacks, and that's because of increased blood clots. Weight gain, and that's due to cortisol, typically, and its connection there, and it's a glucocorticoid, as I've mentioned, that kind of hormone that is tied to insulin levels. So high blood sugar is going to lead to weight gain. Insulin resistance, that's kind of the same story. So that means, we're more prone to diabetes and something called metabolic syndrome, but that is also going to be tied to your blood sugar and cortisol levels. Abnormal lipids, all the same game, all the same systems and hormones playing into that. So your fats may be dysregulated, where you'll have a higher LDL versus the good guys, HDL, arrhythmia, irregular heartbeat, increased blood pressure, faster heart rate. All of those things are kind of a stress response and things we want to be very aware of and try and control as much as possible. So just a quick recap on how we can help with the anxiety and depression side of things. Yes, stop eating the inflammatory foods. That's the number one thing in my book. Obviously, I'm a nutritionist, so that's why, but I do just see the direct impact. I've had so many people come to me especially after doing my detox, that say, I don't know why, but my anxiety levels have gone down, and it's never a surprise to me. So it's just important to recognize that. Again, we need to respect our body's natural circadian rhythms, getting quality sleep, and we'll talk much more about that next week. Limiting screen times, again, next week, that'll be a factor that we'll talk to. Knowing your triggers. Is it something that, you're walking into a situation knowing this is going to cause me anxiety? Being very aware of that. Getting outside every day. That's one of my life-saving techniques. Practicing a stress reduction technique. That's not going to be the same for everybody. Meditation to journaling to having coffee with a friend to going for a walk. All of those are different tools, but you really kind of need to discover what is right for you, and not kind of listen to anybody else's opinion on that. And then finally, and definitely not, least important, is seeking professional help. I've actually found some recent good resources there. I think everyone could use somebody to talk to in some form or fashion. So, if you're definitely feeling that you are not able to control this on your own, please reach out, and there's professionals that can help you with that. And I am reposting this slide just for you. It was in the first presentation too, but just ways to test for inflammation in case you missed it the first time. Just great blood work that you can have done at your doctor's to show you just a picture and a snapshot of your inflammation levels throughout your body. So that's it for week 3. I hope you enjoyed. And, keep going strong. I know this winter can be rough. I actually was starving all day today, to be completely honest. So, I had an afternoon latte, an early lunch latte, and I'm probably going to have one here shortly. So, make it work for you. Don't, in these crappy weather, gray, snowy days, make the plan work for you. And hopefully you can stay strong and realize and be seeing the benefits. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.